Hey guys, it's Tate from Royas, and today we'll be making a login system for our Pong game that we made earlier last year. So first off, we're going to need to make some UI adjustments to allow our game to take in an email and password. So first off, we're going to need some UI adjustments to allow our game to take in an email and password to allow the users to log in. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to rename our IP label to email label. And I'm going to rename our IP text to email text. I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to just say email. We'll just call this email and we're going to duplicate this and create one that says password. And we're going to rename these to password label and password text. Perfect. Now we can just go in here and type in password to, let the user know what they're supposed to enter. Delete any residual text that we had in the text boxes. And we're going to name this one email. Perfect. Now we're going to need to make some modifications to our buttons. So we have the connect button here, and the user won't need the connect button. Like, they'll still essentially be clicking it, but this will be just instead login. We'll keep the host button as is, but we're going to duplicate the connect button. And I'm going to put it, and I'm going to leave it there, and I'm just going to call this button register button. And the text will be register. Perfect. So now we have a way for our users to enter the emails and enter their passwords to allow them to log in and register. So we can save that, and now we can go into our file manager, and we're going to need a NuGet package to allow us to essentially query Playfab to get user IDs or to allow them to create an account. So you can type cmd period, and this will open cmd at the current network location. Now we can navigate to the Playfab all SDK for C#. And we can copy and paste this line here, this .NET add package, into our C#, into our CMD panel. And it's not working for me. Give me a second. There we go. So I've already installed this, so I don't need to install it again, but you can just hit enter. And if you get an error, you can just go up into project, tools, C#, and create a C# solution. Now we can start editing our code to allow the user to enter and log in and register with the servers. So if we can go in here. There we go. Now we're going to need to inherit a few classes from Playfab. So using Playfab, and we'll just use that, using Playfab.clientModels. And this is just for showing it off, but using Playfab.serverModels. So I can already see in this script we don't have a ready function, so I'm going to create one. So public override void ready, and essentially this will just run code whenever the script is executed. So this is when the script's executed. We're going to have to tell Playfab essentially who we are. So if we can go into Playfab and click on my game, and I have a few calls here from my testing. So title settings, API features, and you can see our title ID right here. So what I can do is I can copy that title ID and go into Playfab and type in ready, Playfab settings, .static settings, .title ID equals, and we can paste in that number, sorry about this, that we got from the Playfab servers. So we're going to need to do this one more time, but it's going to be hard to show you. So we're going to need to get playfab settings dot static settings dot secret ID developer secret key equals, and I can't show this one to you because this one you're not supposed to ever give to any user. And realistically, this should not be in this file. This should be in a server file that the user will never have access to, even if they decompile your game. I'm only showing this to you in this script for ease of execution, essentially. So if you want to find it, back in your Playfab Studio, you can go to Secret Keys, and there'll be your default secret key. I'll be using this one. Again, I won't show you guys, so I'll be right back. Perfect. So now that we've assigned our secret keys, we'll be able to register and authenticate our user with Playfab. So I'm going to go down to on connect button pressed, and I'm going to say this is the login button. I think that's what I labeled it in Godot. And I'm going to create a new function here called register player. And it's not created yet, so down here we can just do private void, private async void, because this async essentially means this will be running on a separate thread of your CPU, so your whole game won't crash while this is actively running. This is used all the time for API calls. Register player. And actually, I realized this is the login button, so this should be login player, so I'm going to just quickly change that. And we're going to take in no parameters. And so essentially, we need to now create a login request for Playfab. And so we're going to need to get data from our two text fields. And so I'm going to scroll up here. Up here, we already have IP text, which I'll rename to email text. And we're going to create another one of these called text edit, password text, password text. Perfect. So now if we save our file, go back and build our game. And I forgot to switch some things in IP text over, so I'll do that quickly. Actually, so here we use our IP text. We're just going to take this change this to 127.0.0.1. This is just the default networking IP for every computer. This is the one they'll be connecting to for now. So now if we go back in and build, we're going to get no errors, and we're going to be able to assign our email text and password text. So let's just take our email text and put it in here, and password text and put it in here as well. Perfect. Save your file and go back into the script. Now in login player, we're going to have to create a Playfab login request. And so essentially what that means is we're going to be sending that user info to the Playfab servers, and it's going to give the client back, because this is currently on the client side, if the login was right or not. And it's going to give them a string that we can send to our server to prove that the login did happen and who you are. So to do that, we could just do login with email address request. And I'm just going to call this request equals new login with email address request. And we're going to do email equals email text dot text. I messed up here. This should be a comma. Password equals password text dot text. And that's going to be it for this. So we could just end it off here with a semicolon. And now we have all the data we need to send to the Playfab servers. So let's do that. So we're going to type var user login equals Playfab client API dot login with email address asynchronous. So again, run it on a different thread of the CPU so it doesn't kill our game. And we're just going to pass in the request variable here. And so now we're going to want to actually get our keys from our user login. So we can just do Playfab result login result, login, and I'm going to call this variable login credentials equals await user login. So essentially, again, just wait for the API request to be done and then assign it to login credentials. Perfect. Now let's create our registration system. So we can go back into Godot and we have our register button here. So I'm just gonna click this and disconnect any methods it's currently on and connect it to our script. And on register button press, I'm going to call that. I'm going to copy that and connect. Let's create our variable, a private void on register button pressed. And again, this is going to take in no parameters. We're going to be doing a lot of the same things we kind of did up here. So register Playfab request. And we're going to call this request again, equals new register Playfab user request. And we're going to fill in our details again. Email equals email.text.text. Password equals password text.text. And we're going to do require both username and email equals false. We don't need them to give us both their username and email for this login system. And off with semicolon. And once again, we're going to send it off to Playfab to create the user. Var new register equals Playfab client API dot log or register Playfab user asynchronous. And we're going to pass in that request again. So this essentially will just create the account for the user if they click the register button. So let's test if this works. So in Playfab, you can go to My Game, and you'll see that in the last 4 days we've had so many requests and 4 users registered. So we can launch our Godot game. We can build it and launch it. And let's just give it an email like test@testington.text and a password of 123 ABC. You'll want to also hide the password from the user to make sure no one looking sees it, and click register. So we don't have any feedback here, but if I go into Playfab again and just hit refresh, you'll see that we have now 5 users registered on our game. So the registration was a success. And so now that we're registered with this stuff, we can hit login if the host was hosting. Let's build this again. Host. Editor's note here. So I did forget to press or insert the username and password. So the login did not go through. And so that is not reflected in the API. And I didn't catch that. Sorry about that. And now we can hit login. And again, if we go into our Playfab requests, refresh, and we can see that there was another login very recently. Login and a registration recently. So this is all fine and dandy, but like a question I had when doing this research was, how do I get the server to know you logged in? And so this is where this developer keys will come into handy. So if we go back into our script, and if you go down here to login player, you see we have this Playfab login result, where we're going to need to hand this off to the server. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new RPC variable. RPC multiplayer API dot RPC mode dot any peer, which means any peer can call this RPC from anywhere. Now we're going to do private async void server authenticate login. And we're going to take in a string for the player ID. And so here we can just call this with RPC server authenticate login, and then pass in our login credentials dot result dot Playfab ID. So now we're going to need, so now that we take in the ID, we're going to need to prove that the ID is accurate. So we're going to need to query Playfab once again. Playfab set, or we already set our secret key, so we don't need to do that again. Again, the secret key should be in a different file. Do not give out the secret key to players. Then they can modify their own accounts. So authenticate ticket request. Request equals new authenticate ticket request. Not name of. New authenticate ticket request. And it's only going to take in one parameter, session ticket equals player ID. Again, I keep making that mistake. Now we need to query the server. So like up here, we use Playfab client API. We're going to be using Playfab server API. So var ticket auth equals Playfab server API dot authenticate ticket session asynchronous. And we're going to pass in our request again. And then we're going to do var ticket authentication, or var new auth equals await ticket auth. Await, not away. Await ticket auth authentication. Now we can just check to see if the login was successful. So if we're going to have to parse this to a bool, new auth dot result dot is session ticket expired. What are we going to do? Like, for this, you could disconnect the player if the session ticket is expired or invalid. But for this, I'm just going to do gd.print. And I'm going to just say session expired. What do you want to do if it's correct? So I'm just going to do else for this, gd.print. Hi there. So essentially, this should run on the server and should print only on the server. And so I made a mistake in my code here, so I just changed the new auth to not equal null, and we're going to change this to hi there, and we're going to change this to login failed. So now we can save this and log in, and we can hit host on this one, and now we can log in with an account I created, a@b.c. and our password 123abc, and click login, and you'll see on the server it says hi there, meaning that it came back successful and the player's logged in. Alright guys, that's all for this tutorial. If you liked it, I would greatly appreciate a like and subscribe. And there will be more networking tutorials on the way. See you guys.